yeah, about this argument that whatever you do, or President Obama did this, and I think he's wrong on this when he says invest in renewable energy, it will create jobs. Um, anything new, you can make that argument. Um, and then there are these issues such as, and the jobs have to be in the United States. So by putting on these multiple criteria, that renewable energy, we want to develop that, but of course it has to be good economically, and economically to the U.S., not to the world. And you put all of these criteria, you're putting yourself into a very narrow box that's hard to defend on the details. So it doesn't really, we have global problems. We need global solutions. And to me, if the solar industry thrives in China, that's great. Now, what we don't want is for the solar industry to thrive unfairly in China because they're getting huge subsidies that we're not giving our companies. But of course, we do give our companies huge subsidies. If you think of loan guarantees are actually a form of a subsidy. So it's a murky area because of the competition we have with China. We'd love to have the industry develop in the United States. So there's this wonderful bill in California, AB 32, that some people think is stupid because it's subsidizing renewables. But it's actually a very clever ploy to develop an industry in California. AB 32 means that there will be a market for renewables in California. It'll be more expensive than other things, but it's a subsidy. It really is. It's a subsidy without explicit taxes. Everybody pays the taxes indirectly by having higher utility bills. But what it does is it creates a market for renewables. And that market has had a wonderful effect on the industries in California. I think much of the development of solar cells in California has been done because they know there's a market out there, even though it's more expensive than other things. And once you have a market, you start developing it. Our battery technology over the past 20 years has developed because there's a market, because the development of new technologies, laptop computers, cell phones, the existence of these technologies meant there was a market, which meant there was reason to invest in new batteries, and so we have developed new batteries.
In March.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the president of China, his energy security problem is not with transportation fuels, although there is some of that. They import their oil, and they do have a big program to develop oil to liquid conversion, the Fischer-Tropsch process, and there are some more advanced processes too. So that is an important thing to do for their growing transportation sector. But their bigger issue is their growing need for other energy, particularly electricity. And this has been growing, the need for it has been growing at about 10% per year. Last year, their economic growth was only 8%. They're concerned that it's only 8%. That reflects the worldwide slowdown. But their growth was still 8%. And they're getting this mostly from coal. And there are several issues with that. One of them is that coal is just choking their citizens. Just in the news this last week, the worst pollution that China has ever experienced. In Beijing, they're being quite upfront about these numbers, whereas the World Health Organization puts 25, well, they have a measure of micrograms per cubic meter in terms of the pollution, and if it gets above 25, then that's considered unhealthy. And in Beijing, it was over 800 this last week. So this is an urgent health problem. There are estimates that up to 1 million people are dying every year from respiratory illnesses. So that's really urgent to switch away from coal. In addition, they're importing a large fraction of their coal. They're doing this because it's cheap coal available from Australia. And they have lots of coal inland, but they don't have the infrastructure to bring it out. Their infrastructure is somewhat saturated now with coal transportation. So they're importing their basic fuel. One answer to this is more hydroelectric, and many of us environmentalists don't really like hydroelectric. It tends to do enormous local destruction. It's renewable, but I don't like it anyway. Really thought out. I think what we really need to do is to have a several decades in which we can take advantage of the natural gas around the world, which, depending on its use, gives half to one-third the emissions of coal. That's really important. A large fraction of the U.S. energy still comes from coal, though it's dropping. It's dropping because of natural gas. In China, the situation has reached a crisis stage. They need to switch from coal to natural gas, and it is urgent. Now, President Obama, in his first term, did set up a joint system for exchanging information on this. I think that's one of the most important things that he did. It has not really developed as rapidly as it could, and we need to expand that even further.